Trey Lance, year 3. Last time you saw Trey Lance, he was in aw shucks mode. I'm just trying to do the best I can, and Jimmy's great, and 5 quarters later, he broke his ankle. And now he didn't do anything wrong, but he's essentially not the starter of this team anymore. Brock just lapped him. And he's got a whole different mindset. There's no expectations. What did you think of the way he reintroduced himself to the fan base and the media today?
He handled himself with absolute class and professionalism, as he always
He's very good with the media.
Yeah.
He's very good with the media.
So one thing I found particularly interesting was him just talking about the pressure, having to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
I think one talking point that you, me, no other content creator has considered, because Trey Lance has always come across as so mature, composed, so affable, all of these things. We've never considered the fact that this was a guy from Marshall, Minnesota, who played college football at Fargo, North Dakota. The step from going from there to one of the most storied franchises in the NFL with Shanahan, all these expectations.
In a controversial, it was controversial, and a lot of the players in the team were like, what is going on? Jimmy didn't get replaced. I mean, it was awkward. It was like being the girlfriend while the wife was still in the house, all of that stuff. Really awkward.
I just feel like we never projected the difficulty of how hard it must be for somebody at 20, 21, 22 years old to make that transition. And I thought he was very real about that transition today, in saying that it seemed to affect with him the pressure, all of that. And I guess he's enjoying playing football again. That was the one comment from his presser that had me a little bit like, what really happened? Like,
that was wild when he said that. Before? I believe it, though. I mean, it's not like he got drafted into an impossible situation. Everyone said it was the best situation. Like, hey, it's a great team. Go be good right away. It's like, yo, the bar is win the Super Bowl at 21 years old. Like, no one's done that before. And if I don't do it, everyone's going to say I'm trash. Like, that's wild. So he had like maybe more pressure on any quarterback ever that got drafted, like immediate pressure, because the team's ready to go. And he got written off quicker than any top 3 pick ever as well. He also said that someone asked, like, how do you deal with all this? And he's like, well, very close to my parents and my brother and my friends. And I also, there's some people I talked to.
Sam Darnold said the same thing too.
Yes. But he also said there's some people I talked to help get my mind right. And I was like, whoa, are you talking to sports psychologists? And he was like, kind of, yeah. And I was like, did the organization set you up with them or not? And he was like, well, someone on the team recommended something. Because, like, dude, you don't want the organization knowing private stuff like that.
Right.
Like, you go to a therapist and be like, man, Kyle's killing me, man. Like, I got to talk. I got to get this off my chest. So that was very interesting. My wife is a therapist, and we talk about this a lot. She always like, man, there's unreal amount of pressure on these athletes. They also be talking to someone. Also, the trauma of getting injured the way he did, like, it's hard to come back from that. So there's a lot that he could talk about. That was very interesting.
100%. And I'm sure that recovery, the mental gymnastics of going through that, and then the expectation that his finger had to be right, but it wasn't right. I did think that one thing that's been interesting, even when he talked today, is he's always been a little bit sensitive. There's only one topic he's sensitive to, and it's when he's asked questions about his throwing motion. He doesn't like those questions. He never says he doesn't like them. He always answers them respectfully, but he brushes them off in a particular way. And I thought it was interesting in today's presser, Matt Barrows, who recently just wrote an article featuring Jeff Christensen, the quarterback guru who has seemingly helped Trey Lance's mechanics grow quite a bit from where they were previously. He wrote an article saying that Jeff Christensen had to fix his mechanics substantially. It took him the 4 days, whatever. But the gist of it was that he had found the mechanical flaw that was causing the arm fatigue, and they had fixed it. And when Matt Barrows posed the question to Trey Lance today, instead of saying, well, I worked on my mechanics and tweaked something this offseason, Trey Lance spun the answer to say, hey, no. I actually left Fargo in my last game, and I've been throwing that entire time. I threw through the draft process. Then the 40 days, I wanted to work really, really hard, so I threw then too. I can't imagine any quarterback not having fatigue if I threw that much. And I thought seeing that answer and the way he said it and the way he kind of shifted the situation there was also interesting, because I think there's still some sensitivity for him, and the throwing mechanics and all the talk about it is a sore subject.
the way I look at it is like, it's almost like talking about like your sex life. It's like, it's none of your business. Right. That's personal. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go to the right people. I'm going to work this out, but I don't need to confess to you. Like, I'll go to confession and I'll answer the questions, but that's personal, man. Like, if you're smart enough to look at my throwing motion and figure it out on your own, that's between you and God. But if you want me to break it down for you on the record, like, no, because that's honestly my weakest point right now. I don't need to bare my soul to you publicly. I respect that. And also it was very clever for him to twist it as like, I just was too hard. I just tried
exactly. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. He's very mature, composed. Like, you can easily forget he's 23 years old. Same with Brock. Both of them come across as like little 33-year-olds at times.
He's not getting out. Yeah. He's not. I think the key distinction is that I think Purdy just says what needs to be said. I think Lance shows that he's not going to be outsmarted by any of these questions. He's going to answer them directly, but even when you ask him a question that's trying to stump him up, he knows what you're trying to do, and he's going to give you an answer that manipulates the question back to you.
Also, like, he's working on mechanics. Like, he's working with some of the best coaches. He's working on very little details.
Right.
He's answering questions from people that have no clue. So is it his job to educate you and then answer the question? Like, from his perspective, like, man, why don't you do some research and then ask me a good question and then I might answer.
That's where the questions I thought were a little bit, I think they could have gotten a level deeper. And one of the questions I wanted to be asked to him, and maybe I should have tweeted this out or something, was, if you remember, the reason he started working in SoCal with 3DQB was after his second pro day, the 49ers requested that he went and work out there with John Beck. He had been doing his stuff with Quincy Avery. And then I think it was before his second pro day. And then he did his second pro day with John Beck and them instead of doing it with Quincy Avery. And at the time, I think Zach Wilson and Justin Fields were also working out with John Beck, but that was upon the 49ers request. I remember even Quincy Avery had mentioned, they requested that he went and work out there. Since then, it seemed like he had moved his quarterback, whatever, training camp there. And he worked there for a year. Now, Shanahan, when he was talking about it, he basically blamed it on the finger. He said last year he had to make progress in terms of his grip to be able to get himself confident enough to make progress this year. I wish somebody asked him the question, did the 49ers ask you to work out in SoCal with 3DQB, and why did you shift where you're working out with your personal QB coach? Because
my bad.
You and I can sit here and be like,
I asked him, what did you get out of it? But that was the question. Like, why did you change? That was the question.
Because you and I can sit here and say, like, well, he needs to throw this way. This person throws like this, all this. But nobody really knows. He knows. His quarterback coach knows. They know how they're working on it, how they're trying to get him more comfortable throwing the ball. And I wonder what was there. Was this a personal decision that he made? Was this a Jimmy Garoppolo recommendation because he's worked out with Jeff Christensen? What drew Trey Lance to go
Jimmy? That would be so funny if Kyle Shanahan and the whole coaching staff couldn't figure out the right coach, and Jimmy's like, Trey, go see Jeff Christensen.
I mean, they love
Kyle,
how Jimmy
let me fix this for you. Let me fix this for you on the way out to the Raiders, man. Like, that would be hilarious. But maybe
they love how Jimmy throws it, right?
They do. They do. Hey, that's a good question though. Like, how did it take you until year 3 to find the right coach for Trey? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did that happen? Don't know.
Or why? Why? Because usually we don't see quarterback coaches, right? Like, Sam Darnold's worked out with Jordan Palmer from before his draft process till now. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow work out with Jordan Palmer. You know, Patrick Mahomes works out with Jeff Christensen. Usually we don't see this shifting, right?
Also, I want to mention one thing. The pressure. Trey mentioned like he's enjoying football again. I think the pressure was dizzying. It was too much. And I'm not knocking him, but like I think it's what he's trying to say is like, okay, like I'm not being anointed the franchise quarterback. Good. All I want to do is keep my head down, be out of the spotlight, compete, and win the job organically. Like that's better for me than having everyone say like, oh, you're going to be the guy who wins the Super Bowl at 22 and takes Jimmy's job. Like, dude is balding. You can see the stress all over him. Like, honestly, why is he balding so much at 23? Like, this man is stressed. And I think the fact that he can just take a step back and be like, all right, no one believes in me. They got Brock. Brock's the guy. Like, I can just compete now. Like, that's a good place to be in when you're the best athlete in the room. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of a sudden, he's in a good spot. And it seems like mentally he's also in a good spot. This is good for him.
I think it's just more, if we look at who he is as a person and what his roots are, this is more organic for him, right? He's the guy who redshirted, who then had to earn the job and all of that. He had to do that type. That was his journey to get here. He was not Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, who were stars from 7th grade. Went to the big colleges, were the stars on campus, the big man on campus, all of that.
No, he was the dark horse. He was under the radar.
Right. Yep.
He's right back in that role.
Right. So
he's right back in that role. And the guy in front of him is 6 feet tall. Like, he must feel like, all right, cool. Like, this is all right, cool, Brock, love you, man. Cool, but I got this. Which is how he needs to feel. Because, honestly, he does exude that confidence. Brock exudes that confidence. Darnold doesn't. Darnold's gone through some things in the league. And this is year 6 for him. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. But I don't know if you can undo that much. Alex Smith did. Trey Lance, to me, like, he doesn't have the stench of failure on him, which Darnold does. Trey's gotten injured. Trey's had some rough starts, but he's 23, and he still seems like he has confidence. It's crazy that he said he wasn't enjoying football, though, man. Like, Kyle, dude, what is up with your culture that you got these young quarterbacks flipping out, going bald at 23?
Maybe it's the injuries. Maybe it's the injuries.
Maybe it's the injuries,
the benefit of the doubt there,
It's a lot of pressure in Santa Clara.